The Crescent Dawn was one of the largest space stations in the Outer Rim. It floated in the darkness between three solar systems, a meeting point for traders, soldiers, criminals, and everyone in between. Thousands of different species walked its metal halls every day. Some were tall with scales. Some were short with fur. Some had wings. Some had tentacles. And some were human. Park Ji-hoon was one of those humans. He worked in the cargo bay on level 7, moving boxes and crates from ships to storage rooms. It was simple work. Quiet work. He liked it that way. He came to work early, did his job, and went home to his small room on level 12. He did not talk much. He did not make friends. He just existed, like a ghost moving through the busy station. Humans were still new to the galaxy. Only 80 years ago, they had discovered faster-than-light travel and joined the galactic community. To the older species, humans were like children. They were small, weak, and lived very short lives. Most aliens looked at humans and saw nothing special. Just another primitive race trying to find its place among the stars. Ji-hoon never corrected them. He never argued. When aliens pushed past him in the hallways, he stepped aside. When they made jokes about humans, he stayed silent. He wore long sleeves every day, even when the station's air systems made the cargo bay hot and humid. Nobody asked why. Nobody cared enough to ask. On this particular day, the cargo bay was busy. A large trade ship had arrived from the Velhari Empire, carrying expensive goods and important passengers. The Velhari were one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. They were tall, nearly 7 feet on average, with gray skin that was as hard as stone. They had 4 arms, each one ending in sharp claws. Their culture was built on war and honor. They respected strength above all things. Ji-hoon watched the Velhari passengers walk through the cargo bay. They moved like predators, their eyes scanning everything and everyone around them. Most of the workers stepped back to give them room. Ji-hoon kept loading his cart with boxes. He had no reason to stop. That was when he heard the scream. It was a small sound, high and frightened. Ji-hoon turned his head and saw a young human girl on the ground. She could not have been older than 12 or 13. Her bag had fallen, and its contents were scattered across the floor. Standing over her was a Velhari woman in expensive robes. The woman's 4 arms were crossed, and her face was twisted with anger. "You dare touch me," the Velhari woman hissed. Her voice was cold and sharp. "You filthy little creature. Do you know who I am?" Just a faded. The girl's name was Yuna. She was the daughter of a human merchant family that lived on the station. Ji-hoon had seen her before, running through the hallways with her friends, laughing and playing. She was a bright child, full of energy and curiosity, but right now, she looked terrified. Tears were forming in her eyes. "I'm sorry," Yuna whispered. "I didn't mean to bump into you. I'm sorry." The Velhari woman was Lady Saris, a noble from one of the great warrior houses of the Velhari Empire. She was young for her kind, perhaps only 100 years old, but she had already made a name for herself as a skilled fighter. She had won many duels and earned many honors. She was not used to being touched by lesser beings. "Sorry?" Saris laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "Your apology means nothing. You have insulted me in front of my servants. In my culture, such an insult demands blood." The cargo bay had gone quiet. Workers stopped what they were doing. Aliens from many different species watched the scene with interest. A few humans looked worried, but none of them moved. They were afraid. The Velhari were dangerous, and Lady Saris was clearly someone important. Ji-hoon put down the box he was holding. He walked toward the scene slowly, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. People moved out of his way without thinking. There was something about the way he walked, something calm and certain, that made them step aside. "My lady," Ji-hoon said. His voice was quiet but clear. "Please forgive this child. She is young and clumsy." She meant no disrespect. Lady Saris turned her attention to Ji-hoon. She looked him up and down with obvious disgust. He was shorter than her by almost a foot. His clothes were simple work clothes, stained with dust and sweat. He looked like nothing. He looked like nobody. "And who are you?" Saris asked. "Another human coming to beg?" "I am nobody," Ji-hoon said. "But I am asking you to show mercy. The girl is just a child. Whatever offense she has caused, I will pay for it. I will apologize on her behalf. Please, let her go." Saris stared at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. But it was not a pleasant smile. It was the smile of a predator that had found something interesting to play with. "You want to take her place?" Saris asked. "You want to bear the responsibility for her insult?" "Yes," Ji-hoon said simply. "Then prove it." Saris stepped closer to him. Even her servants looked surprised. "In my culture, we settle matters of honor through combat. If no human will fight for this child's honor, then humans have no honor worth respecting." The cargo bay was completely silent now. Everyone was watching. Ji-hoon could feel their eyes on him. He could feel Yuna's frightened gaze on his back. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He had spent 20 years running from his past, 20 years hiding, 20 years trying to forget who he used to be. He had promised himself that he would never fight again. He had promised the ghosts that haunted his dreams that he would live quietly and die peacefully. But some promises were made to be broken. "I accept your challenge," Ji-hoon said. Lady Saris's smile widened. She thought she had found an easy victim. She thought this would be amusing. A quick and bloody lesson for the primitive humans. She had no idea what she had just awakened. Ji-hoon turned and helped Yuna to her feet. He gathered her scattered belongings and put them back in her bag. Then he looked into her frightened eyes and spoke softly. "Go find your parents," he said. "Everything will be okay." Yuna nodded and ran. She did not look back. Ji-hoon watched her go. Then he turned back to Lady Saris. "When do we fight?" he asked. "Tomorrow," Saris said. "At noon. In the central arena. Do not be late, human. I want everyone to see what happens to those who challenge the Velhari." She walked away with her servants following behind her. The crowd began to whisper and murmur. A human had just accepted a death sentence. By tomorrow, everyone on the station would know. Ji-hoon stood alone in the cargo bay. He looked down at his hands, at the long sleeves that covered his arms. He had not wanted this. He had never wanted this again. But some things were worth fighting for. Some things were worth dying for. And Park Ji-hoon had stopped being afraid of death a long time ago. News traveled fast on the crescent dawn. By the time the station's artificial sun dimmed for the night cycle, everyone had heard the story. A human cargo worker had accepted a formal duel against Lady Saris of House Velthorn. A nobody had challenged a highblade. The betting houses opened their doors and took wagers through the night. The odds were not kind to Ji-hoon. For every 1 credit bet on the human, 1,000 were bet on the Velhari. Some betting houses refused to take bets on Ji-hoon at all. They said it would be like betting on a dead man. In the human quarter of the station, the mood was dark. People gathered in small groups and talked in worried voices. They did not know Park Ji-hoon well. He was quiet and kept to himself, but he was human, and that made him one of their own. Kang Dae-ho found Ji-hoon sitting alone in a small food hall near the cargo bay. Dae-ho was an older man, perhaps 60 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been a merchant for most of his life, trading goods between human colonies and alien markets. He had seen many things in his years, both good and bad. "You need to withdraw," Dae-ho said as he sat down across from Ji-hoon. "There's no shame in it. The Velhari allow withdrawal if you pay a fine. I can help you gather the money." "We all can." Ji-hoon looked up from his meal. He had not eaten much. The food sat cold on his plate. "Thank you," Ji-hoon said, "but I cannot withdraw." "Why not?" Dae-ho leaned forward. "Do you know what a highblade is?" Saris has trained in combat since she was a child. She has killed dozens of opponents in formal duels. She is faster than you, stronger than you, and she has 4 arms. You will die in that arena. Ji-hoon was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. Just a little. Then it's time someone showed them what humans can do, he said. Daeho stared at him. There was something strange about the way Ji-hoon spoke. His words were simple, but there was a weight behind them. A certainty that did not match his humble appearance. Who are you? Daeho asked quietly. You're not just a cargo worker, are you? Ji-hoon did not answer. He simply stood up, left some credits on the table for his meal, and walked away. The next morning, the central arena was packed. The arena was the largest open space on the station, a circular pit surrounded by rising seats that could hold 10,000 spectators. Today, every seat was full. Aliens of every species had come to watch the show. They laughed and joked and made bets with their neighbors. A human fighting a Velhari highblade was rare entertainment. In the stands, a small group of humans sat together. They did not laugh or joke. They watched the empty arena floor with tight faces and clenched fists. Eunbi was a medic who worked in the station's hospital. She was a young woman with short black hair and sharp eyes. She had brought her medical kit with her, just in case. She did not expect Ji-hoon to win, but she hoped she could save his life if the Velhari showed mercy. Beside her sat Sung Tae-won, a man in his 50s with a soldier's posture and scars on his hands. He had served in the human military long ago, back when humans were still fighting each other over planets and resources. He had seen combat. He had seen death, and something about Ji-hoon bothered him. I ran a check on him last night, Tae-won said quietly to Eunbi. Park Ji-hoon, cargo worker, arrived on this station 3 years ago. Before that, he worked on a mining colony. Before that, a transport ship. His record goes back about 20 years. And before that? Eunbi asked. Tae-won shook his head. Nothing. It's like he didn't exist before 20 years ago. No birth record. No family record. Nothing. Eunbi frowned. That's impossible. Everyone has records. Not everyone, Tae-won said. His eyes were fixed on the arena entrance. Not the people who don't want to be found. At exactly noon, the arena doors opened. Lady Saris walked out first, and the crowd erupted in cheers. She wore traditional Velhari dueling armor, a mix of metal plates and flexible mesh that allowed her 4 arms to move freely. In each hand, she carried a blade. 4 swords, each one curved and deadly, gleaming under the bright lights. Saris walked to the center of the arena and raised her blades. The crowd cheered louder. She was beautiful in a terrifying way. A perfect warrior from a race of warriors. Then the opposite door opened, and Ji-hoon stepped out. The cheers died down. Some aliens laughed. A few booed. Ji-hoon looked small and plain compared to his opponent. He wore simple clothes. Just loose pants and a thin shirt. He carried no weapons. He had no armor. Is he trying to die faster? Someone in the crowd joked. Ji-hoon walked to the center of the arena and stopped about 10 meters from Saris. He looked up at her without fear. Saris tilted her head. You came. I thought you might run. I don't run, Ji-hoon said. You should have. Saris twirled her blades slowly. I will try to make this quick. Consider it a mercy. The arena master, a large alien with blue skin and 6 eyes, stepped forward. He raised his arms and called out in a booming voice. This is a formal duel of honor. The challenge was issued by Lady Saris of House Velthorn. The challenge was accepted by Park Ji-hoon of the human race. The duel will continue until one fighter yields or cannot continue. Are both fighters ready? Number 5. John Meg B. John Meg B. Saris nodded. Ji-hoon took a slow breath. Then he reached up and began to unbutton his shirt. The crowd murmured in confusion. Saris raised an eyebrow. What are you doing? She asked. Preparing your body for burial? Ji-hoon did not answer. He pulled off his shirt and let it fall to the arena floor. Then he turned slightly, showing his back to part of the crowd and his side to Saris. The arena went silent. Across Ji-hoon's back, shoulders, and arms, there was a tattoo. It was not a simple design. It was complex and detailed, covering almost every inch of skin. Black ink formed patterns of stars and flames, Skulls were woven between the stars, and at the center of his back, between his shoulder blades, there was a single burning symbol. A circle with a hollow center, surrounded by dying light. The mark of a dead star. The mark of the hollow stars. In the stands, Sung Taewon shot to his feet. His face had gone pale. His hands were shaking. "Impossible," he whispered. "They're all dead. They're supposed to all be dead." Across the arena, an old Velhari ambassador slowly rose from his seat. His gray skin had turned almost white. His eyes were wide with something that looked like fear, and in a voice that carried across the silent arena, he spoke a single word: "Hollow Star." Lady Saris heard him. She looked at the tattoo on Jihoon's body, and for the first time since she had arrived on this station, her confidence wavered. She had grown up hearing stories about the hollow stars. Every Velhari had, and now one of them was standing in front of her. The silence in the arena was complete. 10,000 beings held their breath. The words spoken by the old Velhari ambassador hung in the air like smoke from a dying fire. Hollow Star. Two simple words that changed everything. Lady Saris stood frozen in the center of the arena. Her four blades, which had been moving with confident grace just moments ago, now hung still at her sides. She stared at the tattoo on Jihoon's body, as if she was looking at a ghost. In a way, she was. Jihoon turned to face her fully. His chest and stomach bore more of the tattoo. Names were written there in small, careful letters. Human names. Dozens of them. Arranged in neat rows across his skin. Each name was a person. Each name was a story. Each name was a grave that Jihoon carried with him wherever he went. "Do you know what this mark means?" Jihoon asked. His voice was calm and quiet. Saris did not answer. Her throat seemed unable to form words. In the stands, the aliens who had been laughing and joking were now whispering to each other. The younger ones looked confused. They did not understand why everyone was so frightened, but the older ones, the ones who remembered the war, they understood perfectly. A Torvian merchant grabbed his companion's arm. "We need to leave," he said. "Right now." "Why?" his companion asked. "What's happening? What is a hollow star?" The merchant's face was pale beneath his fur. "They are death," he said. "They are the reason any of us are still alive. 70 years ago, the galaxy faced its greatest threat. A species called the Devourer Swarm emerged from the dark space between galaxies. They were not like other species. They did not want trade or peace or territory. They wanted only one thing: to consume. They ate planets. They ate species. They ate everything in their path. The great empires of the galaxy united against them. The Velhari sent their fleets. The Torvians sent their armies. A dozen other species contributed what they could. Even the young human race, barely a century into space travel, sent ships and soldiers to join the fight. It was not enough. The swarm was endless. For every creature killed, 10 more took its place. For every ship destroyed, 100 more emerged from the darkness. The united fleet was pushed back, system by system, world by world. Billions died. Ancient civilizations fell. The great empires began to prepare for extinction. Then came the Battle of Ashfall. Ashfall was a dead moon in a forgotten system. It had no value, no resources, no strategic importance. But it sat in the path of the swarm's advance, and someone needed to hold it while the united fleet regrouped. The mission was given to a human unit. 500 soldiers, most of them young and inexperienced. They were told to hold the moon for 2 weeks. They were told that reinforcements would come. Everyone knew it was a lie. The reinforcements were not coming. The united fleet was broken and scattered. The humans were being sent to die. They went anyway. The swarm arrived 3 days after the humans landed. Millions of creatures descended on the moon like a living tide. The humans dug in and fought. They fought through the day. They fought through the night. They fought until their weapons ran out of power, and they had to pick up rocks and broken metal to use as clubs. 2 weeks passed. No reinforcements came. A month passed. Still no reinforcements. 2 months. 3 months. 6 months. The united fleet finally regrouped after 11 months. They expected to find the moon overrun. They expected to find nothing but bones and ruins. Instead, they found something impossible. The swarm was broken. Billions of devourer creatures lay dead across the moon's surface. The ground was covered in bodies so deep that the rescue ships could not find a place to land, and standing among the corpses, covered in blood and wounds that should have killed them 10 times over, were 43 humans, 43 survivors out of 500. They called themselves the Hollow Stars. The name came from a saying among the soldiers during the siege. When everything is gone, when hope is dead, and the light has faded, we are what remains. We are the Hollow Stars, burning in the darkness. Each survivor marked themselves with the same tattoo, a hollow circle surrounded by dying light. The names of their fallen friends written on their skin. A promise to never forget. A promise to carry the dead with them forever. After the battle, the Hollow Stars became legends. They were offered riches, titles, and positions of power by every major empire in the galaxy. They refused everything. They did not want fame or glory. They just wanted peace. One by one, they disappeared. Some went to remote colonies. Some changed their names and vanished into the endless expanse of space. Some simply stopped existing in any official record. Within a decade, the Hollow Stars were gone. People said they had all died. People said they were just a myth, a story exaggerated by time, but here, in this arena, stood living proof that the legend was real. Park Ji-hoon was a Hollow Star. He had stood on Ashfall. He had fought the endless tide. He had watched his friends die around him and kept fighting anyway. He had survived the unsurvivable. And now, Lady Saris had challenged him to a duel. In the stands, Sung Tae-won sat back down slowly. His hands were still shaking. He had served in the military. He had heard the stories. He had seen the classified reports that described what the Hollow Stars had done. Not just fought. Not just survived. They had become something else on that moon, something that scared even the generals who reviewed the reports. Monsters, one report had called them. Weapons in human form. Weapons in human form. Eunbi looked at Taewon's pale face. "What do we do?" she asked. Taewon laughed. It was not a happy laugh. "We watch," he said. "And we pray that Lady Saris is smart enough to yield." In the arena, Saris had not moved. Her blades trembled slightly in her grip. She was a warrior. She had trained her entire life for combat. She had never been afraid of an opponent before, but she was afraid now. Ji-hoon watched her with calm eyes. There was no anger in his expression, no hatred, no excitement, just a deep, endless patience that seemed to stretch back through decades of pain and loss. "I did not want this," Ji-hoon said softly. "I left that life behind. I became nobody. I wanted to forget. Nobody." He took a step forward. Just one step. But Saris flinched, as if he had swung a blade at her. "But you threatened that girl," Ji-hoon continued, "an innocent child who did nothing wrong. And you spoke of blood and honor, as if you understand what those words mean." His voice grew quieter, but somehow it carried across the entire arena. "I have seen more blood than you can imagine. I have buried more friends than you have ever known. I carry their names on my skin because I never want to forget the price of honor. I told his 1% of the lore." He stopped about 5 meters from Saris, close enough that she could see the scars hidden beneath his tattoos, close enough that she could see the old wounds that had healed wrong. "So I ask you, Lady Saris of House Velthorn, do you still want to talk about blood?" The arena waited. The galaxy waited, and Lady Saris, for the first time in her life, did not know what to do. The old Velhari ambassador's name was Toreth. He was 230 years old, ancient even by Velhari standards. His gray skin had faded to almost white with age, and his forearms moved slowly, weakened by the weight of centuries. But his mind was still sharp, and his memory was painfully clear. He remembered Ashfall. Toreth had been a young officer on the rescue fleet that finally reached the moon. He had been one of the first to land, one of the first to see what the humans had done. The memory had never left him. Some nights, he still woke up screaming. As he watched the scene in the arena below, the old memories came flooding back. The smell of death, the mountains of corpses, the silence that seemed to swallow everything, and those 43 humans standing in the middle of it all, looking at the rescue ships with eyes that had seen too much. Toreth had asked one of them a question that day. A young human woman with blood in her hair and a broken arm hanging uselessly at her side. He had asked her how they survived. She had looked at him with those empty eyes and said, "We didn't." He had not understood then. He understood now. In the arena below, Jihun stood facing Lady Saris. The young Velhari noble had not moved since the revelation. Her blades hung at her sides, forgotten. Her eyes were fixed on the tattoo across Jihun's body, reading the names written there. So many names, so many dead. The arena master cleared his throat nervously. "The duel must proceed," he announced, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "Lady Saris, do you wish to continue?" Saris did not answer. She was lost in her own thoughts, her own memories of the stories she had heard as a child. Every Velhari child learned about Ashfall. It was taught as a warning, a lesson about the nature of humans. The Velhari respected strength and combat prowess. They believed that warriors should be powerful and skilled and trained. Humans were none of those things. They were small and weak and fragile. But on Ashfall, humans had proven something that terrified the Velhari more than any display of strength. Humans did not know how to give up. The Velhari had a word for it: Korath Vel. It roughly translated to the madness of the dying. It described warriors who fought past the point of reason, past the point where any sane creature would surrender or flee. The Velhari considered it a flaw, a weakness of the mind that could be exploited. The humans on Ashfall had shown that Korath Vel was not a weakness. It was a weapon. They had fought when their weapons broke. They had fought when their bodies failed. They had fought when they ran out of food and water and medical supplies. They had fought while carrying the corpses of their friends, refusing to leave them behind. They had fought with their bare hands against creatures that could tear through metal, and they had won, not through strength, not through skill, not through superior technology or numbers or strategy. They had won through sheer, stubborn, terrifying refusal to die. The Velhari had studied the battle extensively in the decades since. They had run simulations. They had consulted experts. They had tried to understand how it was possible. The conclusion was always the same. It should not have been possible. By every logical measure, the humans should have died in the first week, but logic did not apply to humans. Not when they had something to protect. Not when they had decided that they would rather die standing than live kneeling. Never corner a human, the Velhari elders taught their children. They do not know when to stop. Saris had heard that warning 1,000 times. She had always dismissed it as an exaggeration, a story meant to scare children. Now, standing in front of a real hollow star, she understood that the stories had not been exaggerated. If anything, they had been understated. In the stands, the crowd was growing restless. They had come for a show, for blood and excitement. Instead, they were watching two fighters stand motionless in the center of the arena. But the older members of the audience understood what was happening. They understood the weight of this moment. A Velhari Highblade was facing a hollow star. This was not just a duel. This was history. Unbi leaned toward Sung Taewon. "Will she yield?" she asked quietly. Taewon watched Saris with careful eyes. "I don't know," he admitted. "The Velhari have never yielded to a human before. Their pride might not allow it." "Then what happens?" Taewon did not answer. He did not want to think about what would happen if Saris chose to fight. He had read the classified reports. He knew what the hollow stars were capable of. One report described how a single hollow star had killed 37 devourer creatures in hand-to-hand combat during the siege. Another described how a wounded soldier had continued fighting for 3 days with a piece of metal through his chest. A third described how the survivors had built walls out of devourer corpses when they ran out of building materials. These were not soldiers anymore. They were something else. Something that war had forged into a shape that normal people could not understand. And now one of them was standing in an arena, waiting patiently for a young Velhari to decide her fate. Ji-hoon watched Saris with calm eyes. He had no desire to hurt her. He had not wanted this fight. He had spent 20 years trying to forget who he used to be, trying to live a normal life. But she had threatened an innocent child, and some things could not be ignored. "I can see you thinking," Ji-hoon said softly, "weighing your options, calculating your chances." Saris's eyes flickered to his face. "Let me save you the trouble," Ji-hoon continued. "You are faster than me. You are stronger than me. You have 4 arms, and I have 2. If this were a contest of skill and strength, you would win." He paused. "But this is not a contest of skill and strength. This is a fight. And I have been fighting since before your grandmother was born." Saris's jaw tightened. "I am not afraid of you," she said. But her voice wavered slightly. Ji-hoon nodded. "Good. Fear is useless. But let me tell you something that might help you decide what to do." He took another step forward. Saris's grips on her blades tightened. "On Ashfall, we learned something important. We learned that winning is not about being stronger or faster or better. Winning is about being willing to pay a price that your enemy cannot match." His eyes met hers, and for a moment, Saris saw something in those eyes that made her blood run cold. She saw the moon. She saw the corpses. She saw 11 months of endless fighting with no hope and no rescue. She saw a man who had already paid prices she could not imagine. "So ask yourself," Ji-hoon said quietly, "how much are you willing to pay today? Because I promise you, whatever price you name, I can match it. And more." The arena was silent. Saris stood frozen, her blades trembling in her grip, and somewhere in the stands, old Ambassador Torath closed his eyes and whispered a prayer for the young Velhari noble who had made the mistake of challenging a ghost. Lady Saris of House Velthorn had never felt small before. She was tall, even by Velhari standards. She was strong. She was skilled. She had trained under the greatest masters of her house and won honors that warriors twice her age had failed to achieve. She had walked through life with the confidence of someone who knew she was superior. Now, standing in the arena facing Park Ji-hoon, she felt like a child who had wandered into a place she did not belong. The tattoo on his body seemed to glow under the arena lights, all those names, all those dead. Each one was a human who had stood beside him on that moon. Each one was a story she would never know. Each one was a price that had been paid so that the galaxy could survive. Her grandmother had told her about Ashfall. Lady Velthorn the Elder had been a young commander during the war against the Swarm. Her fleet had been part of the united force that finally arrived to rescue the moon. She had been there when they found the survivors. She had been there when they counted the dead. "I saw things on that moon that changed me forever," her grandmother had told her once, late at night when the memories became too heavy to carry alone. "I saw humans, who should have been dead, standing on their feet through willpower alone. I saw them carrying their fallen friends, because they refused to leave anyone behind. I saw eyes that had looked into the darkness and refused to blink." Young Saris had not understood. How could humans, the weakest of the spacefaring races, accomplish something that the mighty Velhari fleets could not? Her grandmother had grabbed her arm, her grip surprisingly strong despite her age. "Listen to me carefully, child. The humans are not weak. They are patient. They are stubborn. And when they have nothing left to lose, they become something terrifying. Promise me you will never forget this." Saris had promised. But promises made in the comfort of home were easy to forget when you were young and proud and certain of your own strength. Now, in this arena, she remembered, Ji-hoon had not moved. He stood with his arms at his sides, his scarred body exposed for all to see. He was not in a fighting stance. He was not preparing to attack. He was simply waiting, giving her time to decide. That patience was somehow more frightening than any display of aggression could have been. "I know who you are now," Sarah said finally. Her voice was steadier than she expected. But names and legends do not win fights. Actions do. Ji-hoon nodded slowly. You're right. Names mean nothing. The dead don't care about names. Then why do you carry them on your skin? The question seemed to surprise him. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Pain. Perhaps. Or grief. It was hard to tell. Because someone has to remember, he said quietly. When I die, these names will disappear. The universe will forget they ever existed. But as long as I breathe, they are still here. They are still real. Saris felt something twist in her chest. It was not a feeling she recognized. It was not fear, exactly. It was something deeper. Something that made her look at this human in a different way. Why did you accept my challenge? She asked. You could have walked away. You could have let me have my moment and then disappeared back into your quiet life. Ji-hoon was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was heavy with decades of weariness. Because I made a promise once. To my friends, to myself. I promised that I would protect the innocent. I promised that I would stand up when others could not. On Ashfall, we did not fight for glory or honor. We fought because there were people behind us who needed time to escape. Families. Children. People who had done nothing wrong except exist in the path of monsters. He looked at her with those calm, patient eyes. That girl you threatened. Yuna. She reminded me of someone. A young soldier who died in the 3rd month of the siege. She was 17 years old. She wanted to be a teacher after the war. She died holding a broken rifle, standing in front of a gap in our defenses because no one else was left to stand there. Saris felt her throat tighten. Her name was Kim Bo-young. Ji-hoon continued. She is on my chest. Right here. He pointed to a spot over his heart. When I saw you threaten that child, I saw Bo-young's face, and I remembered why I survived when so many others died. Why? Saris asked, her voice barely above a whisper. So that I could keep protecting people. So that their deaths would mean something. So that the next time someone threatened an innocent child, there would be someone there to say no. The arena was completely silent. Even the crowd, who had grown restless earlier, seemed to understand that something important was happening. This was not just a duel anymore. This was a moment that would be remembered. Saris looked down at her blades. 4 weapons, each one perfectly balanced, each one capable of killing in a single stroke. She had been so proud of these blades. She had earned them through years of training and combat. They represented everything she had achieved. But what had she achieved, really? Winning duels against other nobles? Collecting honors and titles? Playing games of pride while the universe moved on without her? This human had held a moon against an endless swarm. He had watched his friends die one by one and kept fighting anyway. He had survived something that should have killed him 1,000 times over. And now he was standing in front of her. Not because he wanted glory or revenge, but because he had promised to protect a little girl who reminded him of someone he had lost. What was her pride worth against that? My grandmother survived because of humans like you, Sarah said slowly. Her fleet was trapped behind enemy lines during the war. They thought they were going to die. But the swarm suddenly pulled back, drawn toward Ashfall, toward you and your people. You bought them time to escape. Ji-hoon said nothing. I owe you a debt, Saris continued. My entire house owes you a debt. My entire species owes you a debt. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was stronger. And I have been trying to repay that debt by threatening children and fighting pointless duels for my wounded pride. She looked at Ji-hoon, and for the first time, she saw him not as an opponent, not as a legend, but as a tired old man who had been carrying too much weight for too long. I am sorry, she said. The words hung in the air. 2 simple words that carried more weight than any blade. In the stands, Ambassador Torith watched with tears in his ancient eyes. In all his years, he had never seen a Velhari apologize to anyone let alone a human. The galaxy was changing. Right here in this arena. And everyone who watched knew they were witnessing history. The apology echoed through the silent arena. Two words that had never been spoken before. A Velhari Highblade apologizing to a human. The crowd did not know how to react. Some sat frozen in their seats. Others whispered to their neighbors in confused voices. The betting houses had no odds for this outcome. Ji-hoon looked at Saris for a long moment. His expression was unreadable. 20 years of hiding, of pretending to be nobody, of trying to forget, and now here he was, standing in an arena with his past exposed for the entire galaxy to see. He had expected anger. He had expected violence. He had prepared himself to fight, to hurt, perhaps to kill. He had not prepared for this. Stand up, Ji-hoon said quietly. Saris had begun to lower herself to one knee, a Velhari gesture of submission. At his words, she stopped. I said stand up, Ji-hoon repeated. I did not come here for your submission. I am not your conqueror. Saris straightened slowly. Her 4 blades were still in her hands, but they hung loose at her sides. Then what do you want? I want you to understand something. Ji-hoon took a step toward her. What happened on Ashfall was not glory. It was horror. We did not win that battle. We survived it. There is a difference. He stopped just a few feet away from her. Close enough that she could see the lines on his face, the gray in his hair, the weight of 70 years of memories in his eyes. Every night, I dream of that moon, he continued. I hear their screams. I see their faces. I remember holding my friends while they died and knowing I could not save them. That is not something to worship. That is not something to fear. It is something to mourn. Saris felt her chest tighten. The legends she had grown up with spoke of the hollow stars as invincible warriors, mythical figures who had transcended death itself. They never spoke of the cost. They never spoke of the pain. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Because you are young, Ji-hoon said. And because I see something in you. Potential. Fire. The same fire I saw in my soldiers before Ashfall. Before the universe broke them and forged them into something else. He reached out slowly, giving her time to react, time to pull away, and placed his hand on her shoulder. The touch was gentle, almost fatherly. You can be more than what you are now, he said. You can be a warrior who protects, not one who threatens. You can use your strength to lift others up, not push them down. But you have to choose. Every day, every moment, you have to choose to be better. Saris looked into his eyes. She saw pain there. Endless, bottomless pain. But she also saw something else. Hope. A tiny spark that refused to die despite everything he had been through. Teach me, she said suddenly. The words surprised even her. But once they were out, she knew they were right. Ji-hoon raised an eyebrow. What? Teach me. Saris repeated. Not how to fight. I know how to fight. Teach me how to be what you are. How to protect instead of destroy. How to carry the weight without breaking. The arena buzzed with confused murmurs. No one could hear what they were saying. The distance was too great, and they were speaking too quietly. But everyone could see that something important was happening. Ji-hoon was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, a smile crossed his face. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it transformed his features. For just an instant, he looked younger, less tired. That is not a lesson I can teach you, he said. It is something you have to learn yourself. But I can help you find the path. He lowered his hand and stepped back. Then he extended that same hand toward her, palm open. The duel is over, he said loudly. Loud enough for the arena to hear. Lady Saris has shown courage greater than any victory could prove. She has chosen understanding over violence. I accept her apology, and I offer my hand in friendship." The arena erupted. Some cheered. Some booed. Some simply sat in stunned silence, unable to process what they had just witnessed. A duel ending in friendship? A Velhari noble choosing peace over combat? A human standing as an equal? No. As a superior to one of the galaxy's greatest warriors? It was unprecedented. It was unthinkable. It was exactly what the galaxy needed. Saris looked at Ji-hoon's extended hand. In her culture, taking the hand of a former opponent was a sign of deep respect. It meant acknowledging them as an equal, as someone worthy of standing beside in battle. She had never offered that gesture to anyone outside her own species. Slowly, she sheathed her 4 blades. Then she reached out with her primary right hand and clasped Ji-hoon's hand in her own. The crowd fell silent again. "I was wrong about humans," Saris said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I was wrong about you. I challenged you in ignorance, and I have learned more in these few minutes than I learned in 100 years of training." She raised their joined hands. "Let this be witnessed," she continued, her voice carrying across the arena. "The hollow stars saved my grandmother's fleet. They saved my house. They saved my entire civilization. The debt we owe them can never be repaid, but I swear, on my honor and the honor of House Velthorn, that I will spend the rest of my life trying." In the stands, Ambassador Torath was openly weeping. He had waited 70 years to see this moment. 70 years of watching his people dismiss humans as primitives. 70 years of hoping that someone would remember the truth. And now, finally, someone had. Sung Taewon leaned back in his seat, his face pale but his eyes bright. "Well," he murmured to Eunbi. "I did not expect that." Eunbi wiped her own eyes. She had not realized she was crying. "What happens now?" she asked. Taewon watched as Ji-hoon and Saris walked out of the arena together, their joined hands still raised for all to see. Behind them, the crowd was in chaos, some celebrating, some arguing, some simply trying to understand what they had witnessed. "Now," Taewon smiled, "now everything changes. The duel that should have ended in blood had ended in alliance. The legend that everyone had forgotten had returned, and the galaxy, for the first time in decades, was forced to remember what humans were capable of. Not destruction, not violence, not the madness of the dying, but something far more powerful: hope." 3 days after the duel, the Crescent Dawn station was still buzzing with conversation. The story had spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. News feeds repeated the footage endlessly. Commentators argued about what it meant. Historians dug through archives, searching for more information about the hollow stars. Park Ji-hoon wanted none of it. He had returned to his small room on level 12 and stayed there, avoiding the crowds that gathered whenever he stepped outside. His face was now the most recognized human face in the galaxy. His name was spoken in 1,000 different languages on 1,000 different worlds. He was no longer nobody. He hated it. On the evening of the 3rd day, there was a soft knock on his door. Ji-hoon opened it to find Yuna standing in the hallway. The young girl looked nervous but determined. She was holding a small package wrapped in paper. "Can I come in?" she asked. Ji-hoon stepped aside and let her enter. His room was sparse, just a bed, a desk, a small kitchen area. The only decoration was an old photograph on the wall showing a group of young soldiers standing together, their arms around each other's shoulders. 43 faces, smiling at the camera as if they had all the time in the world. Yuna looked at the photograph but did not ask about it. Instead, she held out the package. "I wanted to thank you," she said. "For what you did. For standing up for me." Ji-hoon took the package and unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a small wooden box. He opened it and found a simple bracelet made of braided cord. "I made it myself," Yuna said quickly, her cheeks turning red. "I know it's not much. I know it's probably stupid compared to what you've—" "It's beautiful," Ji-hoon said. Yuna stopped talking. She looked at him with wide eyes. Ji-hoon slipped the bracelet onto his wrist and held it up to the light. The braided cord was blue and white. The the colors of Earth's old flag. It was simple and rough, and clearly made by inexperienced hands. It was perfect. "Thank you," Jihoon said. "This means more to me than you know." Yuna smiled, a bright and genuine smile that lit up her whole face. Then her expression grew more serious. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course. Why did you do it? Why did you fight for me? You didn't know me. You didn't owe me anything." Jihoon was quiet for a moment. Then he walked to the photograph on the wall and touched it gently with his fingertips. "Do you see this picture?" he asked. "These are my friends, my family, the people I served with on Ashfall." Yuna stepped closer and looked at the young faces in the photograph. They looked so happy, so alive. 43 of us survived the battle," Jihoon continued. "After the war, we went our separate ways. Some could not live with what we had done. Some found peace. Some just faded away." He turned to face her. "I am the last one. All 42 of them are gone now. Age, sickness, accidents. The universe is not kind to old soldiers." Yuna's eyes were wet. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be." Jihoon smiled softly. "They lived full lives, most of them. They found love and happiness and purpose. That was the whole point. That was why we fought, so that people could have the chance to live." He looked at the bracelet on his wrist. "When I saw Lady Saris threatening you, I thought about all the children on the worlds behind Ashfall. The millions of children who got to grow up because we held that moon. They don't know our names. They don't know our faces. Most of them don't even know the battle happened. And that's okay. We didn't fight for recognition. We fought for them. For their future." He knelt down so that his eyes were level with Yuna's. "You remind me of why we did it. You and every other child on this station, and every station in the galaxy. You are the future we fought for. You are the reason we didn't give up." Yuna threw her arms around him. It was sudden and unexpected, and Jihoon stiffened for a moment. But then he relaxed and hugged her back. His eyes closed against the memories that threatened to overwhelm him. "My grandmother used to say something," Yuna said, her voice muffled against his shoulder. "She said that humans aren't special because we're strong. We're special because we remember. We carry our dead forward." Jihoon pulled back and looked at her with something like wonder in his eyes. "Your grandmother was a wise woman. She was a teacher," Yuna said. "Before she died, she taught history." Jihoon thought about Kim Bo-young, the 17-year-old soldier who had wanted to be a teacher. The girl whose name was written over his heart. Perhaps, in some small way, her dream had lived on after all. "Yeah," Jihoon said softly. "We do carry them forward." Later that night, after Yuna had gone home to her parents, Jihoon sat by his window and looked out at the stars. The crescent dawn orbited slowly through space, its lights reflecting off the darkness. Somewhere out there were the ruins of Ashfall. The moon where everything had changed. The grave of 457 humans who had given everything so that others could live. He thought about the names on his skin. He thought about the faces in the photograph. He thought about all the years he had spent hiding, running, trying to forget. He could not forget. He did not want to forget anymore. His tablet chimed. A message from Lady Saris. "I spoke with my house elders," it read. "They wish to establish a formal memorial on Ashfall. A monument to the hollow stars. They are asking for your blessing." "Okay." Jihoon read the message 3 times. A monument. After 70 years of being forgotten, someone wanted to remember. He typed his reply with careful fingers. "The monument should not be for us. It should be for them. For the 457 who did not walk off that moon. Build it for them. And make sure it includes one word." He paused, thinking about what that word should be. Then he continued. "The word is forward, because that is what they would have wanted. Not to be mourned, not to be worshipped, just to be remembered. As we move forward into the future, they died to protect." He sent the message and set down his tablet. Outside, the stars continued their eternal dance. They had witnessed the birth and death of countless civilizations. They had seen heroes rise and fall. They did not care about monuments or memories or the small struggles of mortal beings, but humans cared. Humans remembered. Humans carried their dead forward, written on their skin and etched into their hearts. That was what made them special. Not their strength, not their technology, not their numbers. Their refusal to let go. Ji-hoon touched the bracelet on his wrist and smiled. The hollow stars were never truly empty. They burned with the light of everyone who had believed in them. And as long as one person remembered, that light would never go out. He closed his eyes and, for the first time in 20 years, slept without nightmares. The dead were at peace. And so, finally, was he.